curiosity is the opposite of judgment. Whether it's positive or negative, if we can keep it in a curiosity place, then we're keeping ourselves from landing on a judgment, whether it's about us or whether it's about a thing or an event or someone else.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Welcome to the show, friend. I am so excited to introduce my new best friend to you today. Indhushree is here to talk to us about handling bullying. But what the cool thing about this is, I always talk about that bully from inside of us and how to cope with our own thoughts and our own feelings. But the bully's not always started inside. It's many, many, many times starts from the outside and somebody coming to us in a kind of take your power away situation when you just feel less than because of this interaction. And so we're going to talk about how we gain that control and how we deal with that when it's on the outside. So let's get started. The information about her is in the show notes right now. So if you need it, jump down there. But let's get into dealing with that bully in our lives.
Hi, Laura. It's so good to be here. I'm excited to have this time to talk with you. Bullying, you mentioned that oftentimes you think of that bullying voice that we have on the inside. And, what's funny is that voice had to come from somewhere. We are not born into this world hating ourselves. We are not born into this world not being able to accept who we are. So I think that oftentimes we tend to put out into the world what we're used to or what we think we're worthy of. So sometimes, we get cues about, do I have power? Do I not have power? Am I worthy? Am I not worthy? We get those kinds of cues from our parents, from how we grow up, what we see around us, what's normalized for us. So that's part of it, So I think that, dealing with bullying is really about going inside first and starting to ask questions like, wow, do I deserve to be treated this way? Is it something did I do something to deserve this? Am I worthy of better treatment? It's funny because a lot of times I don't think we naturally ask those kinds of questions. I think we're so focused on, oh, something happened to me and now I have to deal with it. We react. We're in a kind of a rhythm of reaction. But when we stop and we kind of ask a question, it makes us kind of pause for a second. And then we have an opportunity to think a little bit and catch our breath and then respond instead of react. And, when you have a bullying situation, there's a lot of adrenaline. Sometimes there's a lot of fear. Sometimes there's anger. Sometimes there's frustration. All of those feelings are important. But I think we don't really take the time to kind of meet ourselves in those feelings and kind of take a minute and actually ask ourselves about how we're doing. So I think that's where we have to start, to pause.
Yeah, you're right about, it's kind of how we grew up. That one kid that said, oh, you're so ugly, or your sister that said nobody's ever going to marry you because of. And then you have this seed planted. And we can right there pick it out, throw it away, or we can dwell on it, which means feed it and let it flourish and then start believing it. And if I were to say, you're the ugliest guy I've ever seen, you'd go, well, I'm not a guy, so I don't care. You knew what I said was a lie. And so there's never gets that seed planted. But when we think, maybe I am ugly, or maybe I am bitchy, or maybe I am not nice, we sit and second guess ourselves. And just that thought process creates that bully cycle of our internal voice, but somewhere it came from. And I love how you explained that. So as we get these bullies, I think you said something about understanding that or where it's coming from. So what is your process for tuning into the deliverer so that we know how do we respond based on who it was or what the intent was?
Mhm. Well, here's a secret. Most people are actually not as interested in us as we think they are. They're usually pretty absorbed in what they're going through and what's going on for them. So, what's kind of funny is if you can be, I call it when I work with clients, I call it going to the observing place. When we're out in the world doing our thing, we're usually like, oh, I got to go do this. I got to go pay the bills. I got to go to the store. Gotta, right? And when someone says something hurtful, or when someone says something that kind of really just, gets to us, then immediately we react from an emotional place. When we're being emotional, we're already involved. We're already in it. But when we can get into a practice of just watching people and observing, you'll start to pick up on different things. Like usually the bully is the one who's insecure. The bully is the one who's afraid usually. And it's a vie for power because the sooner they can get some power, the sooner they can distract from the fact that they're afraid or they really don't have power. So it's kind of a cool thing when we can just stop and observe. And sometimes it just takes a minute, it takes a second, just an extra second of taking a breath, right? Because that's the other thing that happens when you get into that high adrenaline kind of situation. You forget to breathe. You don't breathe. Right? We get into
Right.
that place, and then pretty soon we're just deer in the headlights. Then your fight or flight kinda kicks in, and it's like, oh, you don't even know what to do. You get either some of us get frozen, some of us get really pissed and will say something right back. Some will shut down and cry. I mean, we all have our way of surviving, but if we can just take a breath, just that extra breath, then we're gonna be in a space where we can watch, and then that sometimes can be enough to help us get grounded and realize, "Oh, this really isn't about me." This has actually nothing to do with me, and that separation sometimes is enough to get us into a different rhythm where we're not in a space of, "Oh god, what is this person gonna say?" or, "Oh man, here he comes," or, "Oh, here she comes." It'll help us stand up a little straighter. Here's the thing that's funny about that, the energy shift has an effect because people take their cues from you.
Mhm.
Most of the time, we're so obsessed with, "Oh my god, did I say that right? Do I look weird?" All of this kinda thing going back and forth, back and forth. But that just because we're paying that much attention to us does not mean that other people are. They're usually in their heads about themselves too. So if all of a sudden you kinda get that, "Oh," clicks, and it's like, "Oh, it's really not about me." You hold your head up and you're not affected. And pretty soon that tension, that draw to you is gone. And the bully has to move on because they're not getting the same rise out of you, you know?
Right? They are looking for a response. Yeah, and you're so right on that. And, one of the things that I've done is, thought, what was it that created this much anger or this much frustration or this much insecurity that causes these people? And I think not the people, but the emotions in the people. And I often say, what if their household was like?
Mhm.
I know when I am at a snappy mode, which is comes around every once in a while, but it's usually because I'm dissatisfied with where I'm sitting right now, and I
Mhm.
want someone else to join my pain. Like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna snap at you because I'm frustrated, and that's what we do with customer support people. We're angry at a product, I'm frustrated at how it happened, and I'm gonna snap at you. And those poor people on the other side of the end are getting the brunt of something they had absolutely nothing to do with. But it
Mhm.
is that feeling, that reaction in somebody. So when I'm attacked or I feel attacked by somebody else, my first response is, where is this coming from? But you don't always know. Sometimes you have to make up your own story to justify it and just feel like you'll send the love back instead
Mhm.
of feeling less than inside yourself.
Mhm. Well, I mean, a good question is before we even get to where's it coming from, I think a good question is this true? Because we take it right